You know, throughout my life, most of my young childhood, my young adulthood, and even my middle age, I've always heard people make statements about God taking care of them. I've always heard people saying God has my back, God's going to take care of me, God's going to provide for me, God is going to solve all of my issues and my problems. God's got me. I've heard that as well. And mind you, I'm ordained and have been for over 30 years. And I don't particularly agree with this belief system. Now, some people that are Christian or maybe a member of some other religious organization may disagree with what I'm about to say, but just hear me out for a moment. I want you to know that God, the Creator, wants us to do something too. We need to stop asking God to solve our problems when we've done nothing to attempt to solve our problems in the first place. For example, I know people who have needed income, but they don't go out diligently seeking employment. They think someone's supposed to knock on the door and offer them a job, or just out of nowhere inadvertently call them on the phone and offer them a job. Ladies and gentlemen, something is required of each and every one of us to solve our own issues. And I believe, I'm a firm believer, that when you have exhausted all of your efforts, that is when God steps in. The Creator, the Almighty, steps in. Not other than that. In other words, He's not going to step in if you're sitting on your behind with your feet up watching reality TV shows. Jerry Springer, Maury Povich, Steve Wilkos, Housewives of Atlanta and New York and all of these other TV shows, and you're not putting forth any concerted effort to try to make your situation better. You think God's supposed to bless you? It's not going to happen. That's not the God that I know. The God that I know and the God that I am familiar with wants us to do something. Even in the scripture, the Apostle Paul spoke about faith. You know, the scripture says that faith without works is dead. Paul said, show me your faith without works, and I'll show you my faith by my works. I believe in something, so I'm going to behave as though that thing is going to come to fruition or come to pass. But if I do absolutely nothing, why do I expect something in return? Remember the story of the fish and the loaves? People were so astounded at the fact that Jesus turned the fish into multiple fish that fed hundreds of people, thousands of people, and the bread as well. And they kept flocking to the place where He supplied that free meal, so to speak, to them. And he gave them some information about not being surprised at the fish and the loaves. He said that he could feed them with something greater. But I use that to say this. I'm sure you've heard this expression. You give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. You teach a man how to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. Now, which man or woman are you? Are you that one that always has your hand out wanting someone to give you the fish? Or are you the one that's willing to learn how to fish so that you can provide both for yourself and for your family? There's a lot of people who just wait for the fish. They wait for you to do something for them. And they wait for God. But I think it's a mockery in a sense. It's a mockery. Because why would you expect God to to do something for you, and God doesn't expect anything from you at all. God, the Creator, Yahweh, He wants us to do something. He left the Bible, the Quran. He left the scriptures for us. So that's a handbook as to the future, the past, and even the present. So why do we expect God to bless us when we have not put anything into our own lives and our own deliverance of salvation? So we're deceiving ourselves. We're very much disillusioned, thinking that God is going to open up the windows of heaven and pour down blessings that we will not have room enough to receive, as Malachi says, and we haven't put anything in. I don't know a God like that, and I hope you don't think God is like that. I've seen people sitting back on their behinds, and they're always asking you to loan them money, and even asking you to give them money. Do you think they have the ability to pay it back? 99.9% of the time, they don't give it back. Or they will give you another excuse after another excuse after another excuse as to why they can't pay you back or won't pay you back, or when they're going to get their income tax and all of these other things. You see, something is required of us. What's required of us is accountability as a human being. There is nothing that the Almighty's ever going to give us free without some effort from us. So if you're looking for a job, you got a check mark in His book. And if you're not looking for a job, say, oh, God's going to bless me with a job. Is He really? And you're not doing anything. It's just like in the private sector when you fill out an application. You're filling out an application because if you didn't fill out the application, no one would know that you were ever seeking employment at a particular company. It could be Walmart, it could be Frisch's, it could be McDonald's, Walgreens, CVS, or a tire place, or wherever. If you never put in an application, in other words, doing the work beforehand, if you never do that, how does anybody know that you're serious? Did you note the operative word that I just used was serious? How does God know that you're serious if you haven't put any effort in? If your children are hungry and you're sitting at home with no food, you don't have any apparent injuries or health issues, you don't work because you just don't want to work, but you're calling your relatives and you're asking them for food, and you use your children as a crutch, and you say, well, the kids are hungry, we haven't had food for a couple of days. And I know personally situations like this as I'm speaking to you. But you call your friends and you call your family, oh, we need food, and oh, girl or whoever it is, we'll be right over, give us a couple hours, we'll bring you some food. But this becomes a routine. It becomes a habit. But there's nothing physically wrong with you as far as going out and finding employment. You just refuse to. You don't want to. And as long as your friends and family keep giving to you, they are enabling your behavior, and then you will never have the desire to go out and get what you're supposed to have and provide for your own family, because there's respect, there's self-respect in doing that. There's dignity, there's integrity to be gained from providing for your own family. You follow what I'm saying? So don't ask God ever to solve your problems if you haven't attempted to solve them first. Because once you have attempted to solve your own issues, employment, a mate, husband or wife, or a job, I've already said employment, or whatever it is that you say that you want or that you really need in life, if you have not put in the effort first, what makes you think that the Creator, that the Almighty is going to do it? Chances are He's not. And then for those people who like to be flippant, you hit the lottery, or someone gives you a large amount of money, or you fall into some money, perhaps, and that's few and far between, but it does happen. A lot of times people like me who have just made these statements, these assertions, you'll say, see, God did bless me. No, He didn't. He didn't bless you with money. No, he didn't. The greatest blessing that God can ever give any human being, first and foremost, is that of a sound mind, mental clarity, the ability to accept and to understand that there is a God and that he is the only true and living God, and that he is the provider of all life on this planet. But that same God treats you as a child because he wants you to grow up and become mature in your lives and try to provide for yourself, as I said, and for that of your families. Then God is there when you have exhausted all of your energy, all of your resources. That's when you need to be looking for God to fulfill his word, that he will be there for you. But he's not going to be there for you to enable you to be something that you're not supposed to be, and that is lazy. This is Teacher. What do you think?